Good morning, everyone. It's another nice, cool morning. Not cold, because I'm in short sleeves, but it's cool. Makes for a nice walk. Well, things are continuing to increase around us as we get closer to what might be our exit. The world's going to be left behind with it, though. Whatever time we leave, the world's going to be left with what's left and with all the things coming that we know about. All the seals, trumpets, and ultimately the bowls. It's not going to be a happy place down here. The term in my case of being a happy camper won't be. Russia just announced, I guess he had it pre-recorded yesterday, but he released it today, his statement to the world. He basically is, let me see if I get this right, reading off my notepad. Russia's announced a partial military call-up. Okay, basically what that means is it's a draft. Excuse me while I walk through some of this rough area here. Don't mean to shake you around too much. He's going to start calling up his reservists first. He says overall there'd be about 300,000 troops added, and that he has at his disposal, if he brings everybody up, about 25 million. Basically letting the world know that he's not playing a game here. The West has been antagonizing him for some time, threatening, nukes and things like that, trying to blackmail him into stopping. Well, it hasn't worked. He's still going. Now, he hasn't been doing well in Ukraine because he thought they would roll over. They didn't. But he's still done a lot of damage. And now he's annexing some other countries. He claims at their request. So I'm not sure how accurate that is, but he's annexing them. And he says their militia are now part of the Russian military. So he's up in his ante, and if he brings in more troops, he's going to ultimately have enough to do the Gog and Magog war. What he hasn't done yet is he hasn't fully brought in the other countries. Now, we don't know with the Gog and Magog war at what degree the other countries are going to be part of that. We know Iran right now is supplying drones. So they're part of his current war effort, whether they want to be or not. He didn't start shooting at the Iranians when they were starting to get him into trouble because of their arms buildup in Syria. He just told them to get out of the way. We don't need an incident because of you. And they didn't complain too loudly. They started backing away. And if we, let's see, what was his statement? He said, the West has been trying to blackmail us with their threat of nuclear weapons. He said, the wind can turn in the other direction. They have a lot of nuclear weapons too. So they got to be careful about that. And let's see what's he got. He's got a couple of Luhansk and Donbass, I don't know if that's how you say it, will be annexed along with two other countries. Expanding. He eventually He's ex-KGB under the Soviet Union. He wants the Soviet Union back. And Ukraine was part of that at one point. Once he gets, if he does get Ukraine though, he will be down real close to Israel. So we'll see what happens. I'm hearing water dripping from trees. I'm going to stay out from the trees. Yep, I just got water dripped on me. We had a little bit of rain, not much, very, very little last evening. More of the traditional end of day relaxing of the atmosphere. Okay, and we also know that there have been some big earthquakes around the world. Now, some of the authorities are saying they're not really seeing an increase, but a lot of times with earthquakes, it's not the increased nature, but it's the positioning. The San Andreas Fault going through California goes from one end to the other. It's pretty massive. I don't know, is my swing over here that I like to sit on under a tree that I might get dripped on? Let me head over here. I am going to miss these walks. I hope there's hiking trails in heaven. I love to explore. Another rabbit trail. Back when I used to play video games, I would play the video games initially just to explore. They create all these territories and all these different continents and things. I remember when I was playing World of Warcraft years ago. I took my character, and you're supposed to develop your characters and get them stronger and better capable of surviving attacks and things like that. You're supposed to work on that. I didn't. I took my character at a beginning level and took him completely around the continent, and I mapped out all the territories. Yeah, I got killed all the time, but you're not, you come right back in these games. I'm watching fish jump in the river. Cool. I'm right back in my spot that looks out over the river. There's nobody here in the parking lot, not yet. They're probably due to show up, but this is midweek. People don't come out here all the time. They have jobs. There aren't many like me that can freely travel. Another quick rabbit hole. I'm moving on the 26th. I'm trying to work out plans to stay close by, if you will, to where my son lives. He is flying on the 27th to Peru to spend some time with his girlfriend there and her family. So if we don't go flying together someplace else, then he's going to fly down there. I suspect it's his last trip down there, so if we're still here, he can go ahead and go. I'm going to talk about a little bit during the Bible study today about Rosh Hashanah coming up. So I'm not going to talk about it right now. I want to get back to my volcanic activity. Okay, we're seeing activity around the world. The agencies, even when we have peak activity, say, there doesn't seem to be any increase in activity. Over the short term, there is. They're always in denial. It's like they don't want to be responsible for saying, oh, we have an increased activity and people stop doing things. They never say there's an increase. But we've got, let me look up my numbers again so I get them right. Okay, there are 48 active volcanoes around the world right now. Now that doesn't mean they're blowing up, throwing lava out, but they've had some activity, some lava flow or something, blowing off steam in the last 3 months. So there's activity around. What most people don't realize is how fragile we are here. If you take a basketball and make that the earth, and you get some of that clear plastic tape you wrap up, you close up packages with, and wrap the basketball in the tape's about how thick the crust is. It's not very thick. It's most of the time in miles, tens of miles. It may be 100 miles in some spots, maybe 50 in others, but there are spots where it's like 5 miles thick. If it was all like that, we'd really be in bad shape, but it's mostly in areas. And it depends on how much activity is in the area to whether that's a problem. Places like California, they get over 100 quakes a day. Most of them, 2 and below. But they get, on average, a 3 or a 4 every day someplace. I think San Jose just got hit. The middle of the state got hit with, I think, a 5, 6 or something. It depends on whether the activities are right in a town or out in the desert. There's a lot of empty space in California. But what's been concerning them of late is the earthquakes in the southern part, because that's where the San Andreas, which goes all the way down to South America, but the San Andreas basically is, it gets stuck in the southern part, and when that starts to free up, it frees up the rest of it to move. In the history of the quake areas, when we've had like the Silmar quake or the San Francisco quake not too long ago, a number of years ago, it was preceded by activity in the south. And we just had activity in the south. Is it getting ready? Predicting earthquakes is not a science. It's a educated guess. And again, people are reluctant to predict that, because if they predict and it doesn't happen, it puts people at ease when they shouldn't be. And if it does happen, then it makes them seem like they've got an inside track, but they really don't. It's guessing. Predicting earthquakes, I guess I could say, is about as accurate as predicting the rapture. Okay. Okay, I guess I've covered all that. There are some signs of volcanic activity increasing. For instance, they've talked about the Mount St. Helens dome increasing a little bit. They're picking up microquakes in Yellowstone, which means the lava is moving. Where is it moving? Well, they don't know. But the microquakes tell you that it's moving. So Yellowstone is sitting on a hot spot. And it's not moving very fast. But a good example of a hot spot would be the Hawaiian chain. All those islands are caused by a volcano coming up over a hot spot. And then it moves on, and it creates another island. And then it moves on, and it creates... And the activity there, the volcanic activity there, is pretty regular over the hot spot. So we know that the Earth is sitting precariously, and there is a hot spot under Yellowstone. That's why all that, bubbling cauldrons and stuff around there, if you fall into them, you can burn yourself to death. There's stuff going on under there. The reason we have the Grand Canyon is because of that hot spot. I have my first car pulling into the parking lot. We'll see if they're a nuisance or not. There was a major lake covering, 2 or 3 states worth at least, over that general area. And at some point in time, an earthquake or volcanic activity caused the earthen dam to break, and all that water comes rushing down the Colorado River, pretty much causing the Grand Canyon to get started anyway. It's been eroding ever since, but it at least created the basic parts of it. So we're on a world that, we live day to day, but volcanology goes, for 100 years at a time looking at things. We think we're relatively safe, but every major fault in California is past its due date. They have major quakes every so often, and they've got those timed out, and now they're stuck. So something's ready to happen. Major cities like LA and, all up along the coast, there's big cities, but LA and San Francisco are right on the path. The San Andreas Fault goes right through the San Francisco Bay, right at the bottom of it. That's why it's there. So, could something happen? Yeah. We know eventually there would be a massive, massive earthquake, bigger than ever been felt, with man on the earth. That's in our Revelation story, but that's well into the time that we're going to be gone, so don't worry about it. But little stuff can happen, and it's on the increase. Okay. As we get closer to our end of the month, I'm going to talk about it here, but I'll cover it with my Bible study in a bit. Rosh Hashanah is coming up, and as I've talked about it in the past, it is a artificial date, but God uses what man does all the time, so he could use it. But take Rosh Hashanah out of the way, the Feast of Trumpets has always been there, and it's Yom Teruah is the proper name, the feast or the day of shouting. It was the end of the harvest, it's celebration time. The New Year should be celebration time, but it was supposed to be. Why is the New Year in the 7th month? It should be in the 1st month. Tishri is not the start of the year. But anyhow, we'll leave them for that. They moved it because they didn't want it to coincide with Easter and Christ, but they're always up to no good, these Jewish leaders. Any case, it's a celebration. It's their New Year's. And like I posted my little picture, your traditional New Year's noisemakers will suffice. You don't have to have a shofar. That's traditional, but they blew the shofar all the time. But there are going to be many of them. And I gave you the link to that one site, the esm.us, I think it was. Anyway, it's up on my site if you want to go look for it. Or they're going to all get together and blow their shofars at the same time. And you can also have a regular trumpet. They had brass trumpets back then. Maybe they didn't have the working mechanism, but they had the horn. It's a 2-day celebration. Very, very long sermons in the temple. 3 and 4 hour sermons. We put up with an hour on Sunday. Well, for 2 days they're going to have 3 and 4 hour ones. I guess you have to pick the one you want to go to and do that. And after it's over with, there's a day of fasting, so they're going to be in that. Also, when it ends, there's a 10-day kind of reconciling yourself time period, which leads up to Yom Kippur. So we've got time. If we go by what Brenda has been teaching, and I kind of agree. I don't know how it's going to fit exactly like with her timeline, but a lot of her stuff I have to take a lot of time to go through and look at it. But there should be an 8-day waiting period. If we're the child of Revelation 12, we know Israel's the mother, but if we're the child and we're born, we have to have 8 days. So is that going to push us to Yom Kippur? We don't know when it starts. It could start a couple days after the Feast of Trumpets, We're not tied to a date. It can happen anytime, even today. But if we push it into that time frame, and we have it happen after, so it may not happen on the 26th or 25th through the 27th, technically, if you want to go with the evening dates. If it happens after that, another day or two after that, and we go 8 days, that would put us on Yom Kippur, but we don't know. We've also been told we got something coming up on the 24th. Was it the 23rd as I posted? I don't have my notes. It's an International Day of Peace, as if we're going to have it because they have a celebration day for it. Russia's not honoring that, of course, so I don't know how you can count that unless, in this particular square foot that I'm looking at right below me, there's no war going on, so there's peace there. Yeah, and you talk about the peace symbol. Yeah, it could be, doesn't have to be. It's been around from the 60s, you know, all the drug culture back then. What is it? Tune in, turn on, and drop out was their philosophy, I guess. I grew up through a lot of that, so I got to see it firsthand. I was never a part of it. Okay, let me get into my study because I'm already up close to my time limit. I've still got to keep my stories close to 30 minutes total because it's a pain to try to get these videos uploaded. I'm almost at my limit on my one device, so I've got to pay attention. I'm real close to the end of the month, so the billing cycle is going to change here shortly, but I've got to make sure I watch that. Okay, let me wrap up and let me get to my Bible study. Hello, everybody. Here a little bit. Let's take a look at 3 specific scriptures. Good hot coffee. We're entering into the fall feast times, and this is the first really big celebration. Now, as I've said before, they moved the New Year to get it out of the way of Jesus, and they overlapped it with the Feast of Trumpets. Because you would think a New Year would be on the first of the month, or if you want to roll it over from the last month, the last day of the previous year. It's in the springtime. It's not now, but they're doing what they're doing. And is God going to honor that? Well, the Feast of Trumpets is here anyway, even if the New Year's not. So let's take a look at what that entails. Turn with me to Nehemiah, and I'm going to go start at 8:1. It says, when the 7th month came, the children of Israel were in their cities. Now all the people gathered together as one man in an open square that was in front of the water gate. And they told Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses. And the law of Moses had, the law that Moses had received from the Lord as a command to Israel. Okay. So Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly of men and women who could hear and understand on the first day of the 7th month. Then he read from it in the open square, and it was in front of the water gate from morning until midday before the men and the women could understand, and the ears of the people were attentive to the book of the law. So Ezra the scribe stood on a platform of wood which they had made for the purpose, and beside him at his right hand was Mattithiah, Shema, Ananiah, Urijah, Hilkiah, Messiah. On his left, more names. It's about as much fun as reading the genealogy of Jesus. And Ezra opened the book on the side of the people, and he read it there. I'm going to jump over to 9. And Nehemiah, who was the governor, Ezra the priest and the scribe, and the Levites who taught the people said, to all the people, this day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn nor weep, for all the people wept when they were hearing the words of the law. So he's telling them, don't cry. This is a joyous day. And he said to them, go your way, eat the fat, drink the sweet, send portions to those to whom nothing is prepared, for this day is holy to the Lord. Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. So that's after the law was given. This is just bringing them all together and getting them to start celebrating it. Well, let's look at the original law from Leviticus. I'm in Leviticus 23:23. For the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath rest, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. Okay, so that's the instruction. Leviticus has just got a list of things here. The next chapter is the Day of Atonement, the Feast of Tabernacles. They're all listed here. Also, if you go back to 23:4, these are the feasts of the Lord, holy convocations which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. On the 14th day of the 1st month at twilight is the Lord's Passover. So Passover is in the 1st month. Why would the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh, head of the year, Rosh Hashanah, why would they not celebrate that in the 1st year? Come on, guys, you're messing with things. Okay, and now let's go to Numbers 29:1. In the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work, for it is the day of blowing of trumpets. You shall offer a burnt offering as a sweet aroma to the Lord, a young bull, a ram, 7 lambs in their 1st year without blemish. The grain offering shall be fine flour mixed with oil. It's a standard offering stuff. They knew how to do that well because they've been doing it for a long time. And they haven't been doing it since 70 AD, roughly. When they came in and destroyed the temple, they had no place to sacrifice, because it has to be a holy place. You can't just go sacrifice anywhere. So they were about to bring their temple back. If you hadn't noticed, and if I haven't mentioned it enough, they have to have a red heifer. They have 5 that have been rabbi approved. At least at the time they looked at them, they're eligible to be sacrificed. And you don't have to sacrifice at any, on a particular place. You would be sacrificing the red heifer to make the anointing oil to anoint the priests and the temple. Well, there's no temple yet, so there's no need for that yet. So they could basically, they already have a portable altar, and they've already been practicing with it. It's got wheels on it. They can roll it around. If somebody would let them, they'd roll it right up on the Temple Mount. They could. They'd start World War III, so we're going to wait till World War III starts, and then they get them out of there, or they bring peace, one or the other. We talk about having peace, and then everything breaks loose. So let's see if somebody can calm them down. If the Muslims weren't divided, this would be an easy task. All the southern Muslims are fine. But they've been fighting long before the Israelis moved in. The Shiites and the Sunnis. They have disagreements on how they should behave. They have the same God, the same religion, the same leader, Muhammad, and yet they can't stop fighting. We can't point fingers because we've done the same thing. Catholics and the Protestants, take your pick, it doesn't matter. If you don't believe the way I do, you're evil and I'm going to kill you. Where is that coming from? It doesn't come from God. So are we going to get some temporary peace up there so they can go sacrifice on the mount? They could put a portable tabernacle up right now and be in business. And as I've said before, we know that, it's not necessary. We know that it's not going to make things better. We're the temple. They can't do anything with the temple. But I keep saying all along, if it helps to unite the Jews behind their religious upbringing, most of the Jews are not practicing. Give them something to practice and help unite them, and it will give someone an opportunity to witness to them. The 144,000, if they had to do it right now, these people would be scattered. They'd have to go door to door like the Mormons or Jehovah's Witness. It's a slow process. But get them all together, get them to come to the temple. Then you've got a captive audience. So from that point of view, I think having the temple will be useful. Now we know that the Antichrist is going to use it. That's another lesson. But that's after we're gone, so we don't have to worry about that. So are we going to be gone during the Feast of Trumpets? We don't know. Again, Paul's been looking for the rapture, so it could be any time. It could be today. One thought I've had is that, and I mentioned it before, it could be a couple days after the Feast of Trumpets to get our 8 days in for the Yom Kippur celebration. That's a solemn celebration, and they're supposed to, for 10 days, reflect on themselves, look inwardly, make sure they're right with God after the Feast of Trumpets. And that way, when the Day of Atonement gets here, they're ready. Okay, we're getting close. This is the 21st. There's talks about something major happening today, something major happening on the 23rd, the 24th. We've got everybody and their brothers predicting something. Let's see. We're not going to have to worry about what's happening. We've had asteroids flying really close to the Earth. I think we had one last night. NASA's been doing some planning just in case one gets too close. They'd have to launch a rocket at it. They'd have to hit it with something. They'd have to blow it up. And then all the fragments would come down. But the fragments, they're hoping, would be less destructive and maybe burn up than having a massive asteroid hit us. It may or may not work. You ultimately cannot stop what's coming. Wormwood is out there in the future somewhere. They're not going to be able to stop it. Because maybe they're not going to know about it. NASA said in the past that if the asteroid comes to us away from the sun, they can see it. But if it's coming at us from the direction of the sun, they can't see it. The sunlight's not reflecting on it, it's actually hiding it. So they won't know until it sticks its head out. By that time it'll be too close. The further away they can detect it, the further away they can do something. They don't have to hit it directly, they could blow it up. And they're getting pretty good because they've managed to fly their rockets and have them land on rocks that are out there, little asteroids, meteors. So they're getting good with the navigation. They're getting good with propulsion and all the stuff that they need. All they need to do is to have the asteroid coming like this and blow a bomb up and then push it off. That would throw it off course and potentially miss the Earth. Now, does that mean it's going to come back around the next time and hit us? It depends on how the orbit changes. Leave that to the physicists. But eventually we're going to get hit. Okay. Be calm, be loving with each other as we get closer in these times. The Feast of Trumpets is coming up. Again, we don't need a Jewish feast to be raptured. But right after that, it would probably be helpful to have a Jewish feast. We're the child, Israel is the woman. going to come after us, then he's going to go after them. Russia's building stronger and stronger. They didn't have enough people down to really do Ukraine. They were hoping that they would cave. But Russia's mad at the West right now because we've been helping them. You know, and we've been openly helping them. It's one thing to just, we're sneak some stuff into you, don't tell anybody, this is just something to help you, but don't tell anybody. No, we went out in the open. Hey, we're giving arms to your enemy so they can kill you. Who in their right mind would do that? I think I've answered the question. You got to have a right mind for that. Or an agenda, which I think is more likely the case. We're getting close to our election too, so things could happen for that as well. We know which direction it will go if nothing is done. I don't think they like that. And I'm going to have to really be careful about what I say. This channel has new policies. 3 strikes, you're out. I don't have any so far, so I'm good, I think. I haven't had any physical warnings, but I've had them flag stuff that had to be reviewed, and then once reviewed, allowed to pass, so I haven't had any problem. That video that somebody claimed they had the rights to, they don't, but the problem is I do these daily, and it would take me a week to get that cleared up, and you would have not seen my video. Oh well, it's a nuisance, but we'll get past it. Okay. The Feast of Trumpets is a joyous holiday. The foods, as you saw in that one verse, are sweet, honey, pomegranates, dates, things that are tasty. So, be celebrating. That's kind of why I showed you the picture of my donuts. They'll be gone by the time Feast of Trumpets gets here. I'll have to tap into one of my other pastries. Okay, until we meet in the clouds, God bless. And I'm going to tack on a little bit of local fun footage. My armadillos have been busy around me last night, and I saw 2 of them, so I got them on film. There's our armadillos. They're normally done by now, but they're heading into the woods. All this ground that's dug up around here, this was done by an armadillo recently. And that's my tent. And I can see some more over there. You can see wherever the pine needles are dug up, they're looking for roots and grubs and all kinds of stuff.